Hey there, so today we are going to learn about Scrapy. What Scrapy is overall, Scrapy versus other Python-based scraping tools, why you should use it, and when it makes sense to use some other tools, pros and cons of Scrapy, and that would be it. So let's begin. Scrapy overall is a web crawling framework written in Python. One of its main advantages is that it's built on top of Twisted asynchronous networking framework, which in other words means that it's A, really efficient, and B, Scrapy is a synchronous framework. So to illustrate why this is a great feature, I'll use, for those of you that don't know what asynchronous scraping framework means, I'll use some layman example. So imagine you had to call 100 different people by phone numbers. Well, normally you would do it by sitting down and then dialing the first number and then patiently waiting for the response on the other end. In asynchronous world, you can pretty much dial in first 20 or 50 phone numbers and then only process those calls once the other person on the other end picks up the phone. Hopefully now it makes sense. Scrapy is supported under or uses Python 2.7 and Python 3.3, so you can pretty much, depending on your version of Python, you are pretty much good to go. So Python 2.6, important thing to note, support was dropped starting at Scrapy 0.20, so just bear that in mind, and Python 3 support was added in Scrapy 1.1. Scrapy, in some ways, it's similar to Django, so those of you that use or have used previously Django will definitely benefit. Now let's talk more about other Python-based scraping tools. And these, bear in mind that these are all specialized libraries with very focused functionality, and they don't claim or they are not really a complete web scraping solution like Scrapy is. The first two, or the urllib2 and then requests, are modules for reading or opening web pages, so HTTP modules. The other two are Beautiful Soup and then LXML. These are for, aka the fun part of the scraping jobs, or really for extracting data points from those pages that load with urllib2 and then requests. But let's get back to the urllib2. And urllib2, the biggest advantage is that it's included in the Python standard library, so it's better included, and as long as you have Python installed, you're good to go. In past, it was more popular, but since then another tool replaced it, and that tool, believe it or not, is called requests. The docs or documentations are superb for requests. I think it's even the most popular module for Python, period. And if you haven't already, once again, the docs are just amazing. So if you haven't already, just give it a read. And requests, unfortunately, doesn't come pre-installed with Python, so you will have to install it. I personally use it for quick and dirty scraping jobs, and both urllib2 and requests are supported with Python 2 and Python 3. The next tool is called Beautiful Soup, and once again it's used for extracting data points from the pages that are loaded, okay? And the Beautiful Soup, it's quite robust, and it handles nicely mail-format markup. So in other words, if you have a page that is not getting validated as a proper HTML, but you know for a fact that it's a page and that it's HTML specifically page, then you should give it a try, scraping data with Beautiful Soup. So actually the name came from the expression tag soup, which is used to describe severely invalid markup. Beautiful Soup creates a parse tree that can be used to extract data from HTML. The official docs are comprehensive, easy to read, and with lots of examples, so they are really, just like with the requests, they are really beginner friendly. And just like the other tools for scraping, Beautiful Soup also comes with Python 2 and Python 3. And now let's talk for LXML. Now, what LXML is just similar to the Beautiful Soup. So once again, it handles, or it's used for scraping data. It's a most feature-rich Python library for processing both XML and HTML. It's also really fast and memory efficient. Fun fact is that Scrapy selectors are built over LXML, and for example, Beautiful Soup also supports it as a parser. Just like with the requests, I personally use LXML in pair with requests, of course, for, again, previously mentioned quick and dirty jobs. Bear in mind that official documentation is not that beginner friendly, to be honest. And so if you haven't already used similar tool in the past, use examples from blogs or other sites. It will probably make a bit more sense than the official way of reading. The last tool for scraping is called Selenium. So to preface this, Selenium is first and foremost a tool for writing automated tests for web applications. It's used for web scraping mainly because it's beginner friendly, and if a site uses JavaScript, so if site is heavy on JavaScript, which more and more sites are, Selenium is a good option because once again it's easy to extract the data if you're a beginner, or if JavaScript interactions are very complex, if you have a bunch of GET and POST requests. I use it sometimes solely or in pair with Scrapy. And most of the time when I'm using it with Scrapy, I kind of try to iterate over, once again, JavaScript heavy pages, and then use Scrapy selectors to grab the HTML that Selenium produces. Currently supported Python versions for Selenium are 2.7 and 3. And then plus. Overall, Selenium support is really extensive, and it provides bindings for languages such as Java, C#, Ruby, Python of course, and then JavaScript. Selenium official docs are once again great and easy to grasp, and you can probably give it a read even if you are a complete beginner, and in 2 hours you will pretty much figure it all out. Bear in mind that from my testing, for example, scraping 1,000 pages from Wikipedia was 20 times faster, believe it or not, in Scrapy than in Selenium. Also, on top of that, it consumed a lot less memory, and CPU usage was a lot lower than with Scrapy than with the Selenium. So back to the Scrapy, main pros when using Scrapy. Of course, it's first and foremost asynchronous, but if you're building something robust and want to make it as efficient as possible, with lots of flexibility and bunch of options, then you should definitely use it. One case example when using some other, like above mentioned tools, kind of makes sense, is if you had a project where you need to load homepage or something like that of your favorite, let's say restaurant, and check if they are having your favorite dish on the menu. And then for this type of case, you should not use Scrapy because it would be, to be honest, overkill. Some of the drawbacks of Scrapy is that since it's really a full-fledged framework, it's not that beginner friendly, and learning curve is a little steeper than some other tools. Also, installing Scrapy is a